The hallmark, the telltale sign of a people pleaser is their inability to say no to requests and demands. People pleasers will constantly prioritize another person's needs over their own, leading to burnout, depression, high anxiety, and neglect of their loved ones. They'll do this even without being asked. They'll often insist on helping even though somebody's resisted it. It's like they try to force themselves into people's lives. They try to force their help onto other people, or they simply give no resistance to other people's requests for help. They'll even assume that somebody struggling is the same as asking for help. In today's video, we're going to look at the reason why people pleasers struggle to say no, the reasons they think they struggle, and the real reasons underneath it. So let's first acknowledge that people pleasers, maybe like yourself, are already aware of this problem. They're already stressed and exhausted and burnt out and having to put on a fake smile, and maybe even feeling a lot of resentment and frustration with having to do so much, having so much on their plate, never getting a break, and so on. They're aware something's wrong here. They're aware that they do more than others. They even pride themselves on being more helpful than others. The problem is the story that they tell themselves about why they must keep doing this, why they can't say no. And today we're going to explore those stories, those reasons, those excuses. We're going to look at what the people pleaser thinks is the reason they can't say no, their fears and the way it manifests in their mind. And then we're going to look at the real shit underneath that, the secret motivations to why a people pleaser insists on helping. Of course, what I'm about to share is not all the possibilities, and some of these things won't apply to you. Just look at the ones that do resonate with you and ignore the rest. The first narrative: people will think I'm lazy and selfish if I don't. It's the idea that being helpful and agreeable and productive is what is a good person, is accepted and loved by society, and anything else is what bad people do. Taking care of yourself first is seen as selfish and harmful to others. The next narrative: people will suffer if I don't. People need my help. It's a judgment of other people as being weak and incapable, dependent on you. You predict that your strong intervention in people's lives will lead to a better life for them than if they're left to do things on their own. In fact, you believe if people are left to struggle on their own, they will end up suffering immensely and that they need you to save them. Next narrative: prioritizing other people is good, noble, honorable, words to that effect. It's this idea, this belief that we're conditioned and programmed with in childhood, that good people sacrifice themselves for others. That's what good means, that you hurt so that other people don't have to. And so we become obsessed with finding ways to relieve other people's pain in a way that hurts us. And whether it's getting into heaven or just being accepted by friends, we believe it's morally superior to sacrifice ourselves for others, and we actually look down on other people who don't do this. Next narrative: it's just easier and quicker this way. It's classic for parents or managers who micromanage. This idea that if I get involved, things will go faster, it will be better results. It just makes sense if I do it all and if I'm on top of everything. Now, this idea that I leave you to figure it out on your own and I wait patiently while you make the mistakes and learn, no, I don't have time for that. That's inefficient. So people pleasers often tell themselves that their help is the quickest and best long-term way to deal with a problem. Next narrative: I need to show other people how to be a good person. People pleasers see themselves as a model of how people should be, and they believe that this needs to be demonstrated. They need other people to see them sacrificing themselves and people pleasing and being good and not saying no, so that people get an idea of how they're supposed to live. It's kind of like an education. So while we're helping someone, we're kind of going, look, see, everybody should be like me right now. So while people pleasers often have low self-esteem, they also have a superiority complex. This idea like, the way I do things is the way everyone should do things, so copy me. Next narrative: the world needs more people like me. Kind of continuing on from that last point, people pleasers think that the world is seriously lacking in good, helpful people, and that the burden is on their shoulders to make up for this lack, to try and tip the scales a little bit. We think the world's full of either neutral or evil people that just don't get involved and don't help out society, and we have to carry that weight ourselves. Next narrative, and this is a really powerful one: I don't have a choice. It changes depending on the situation, the context, and so on, but it's a narrative that comes to the conclusion like, this isn't a choice, I have to do this thing. Maybe it's like a deadline's going to be missed if I don't, or someone's wedding will be ruined if I don't do this, or my child will be brainwashed if I don't intervene. The people pleaser always has a really compelling story as to why this must happen and there is no other option. That in a way they're a slave to their agreeableness, they're a slave to helping out, they're a saying no is just not a good moral option any time. And perhaps the most powerful narrative of all, this is just who I am. This idea that people pleasing and never standing up for yourself and never saying no is your personality. That this isn't just some insecure behavioral trait. This is actually who you are. You're a good person. You're designed to be this way to help others, despite the fact that you're exhausted and stressed and you're neglecting your loved ones in order to help strangers and so on. You ignore all of that evidence. You say, no, this is who I am, and I'm totally, totally cool with it. And I feel really good about being this person all the time. Now, I hate to say it, as good as all these excuses sound, they are all fucking lies. They are narratives you tell yourself to justify this behavior and to distract yourself away from what's really going on. Because if you saw that, you're going to start to feel very uncomfortable with never saying no. You're going to start to question the healthiness of always saying yes and neglecting yourself and your loved ones in order to please others. Guilt and cognitive dissonance, which is the discomfort of holding two conflicting beliefs at the same time, a human is wired to try and remove these feelings as much as possible, and the way we do that is with justification narratives, right? We tell ourselves story to make whatever we're doing okay so that we don't feel guilty and so that we don't have to hold difficult conflicting beliefs anymore. We can just choose one and stick with it. When you're people pleasing, a lot of cognitive dissonance and guilt comes up, trying to balance keeping other people happy who you don't even care about and don't matter to you and could do it on their own and don't actually need you, and at the same time you're disrespecting yourself and neglecting your health and not taking care of your kids properly or whatever. There's a lot of guilt and conflict going on there, and it's easy to just wipe it out with stories like, I can't help it, this is just who I am, I'm making the world a better place. These sort of broad brush narratives over what we're doing so that we feel good about it, at least for another day. So, are you ready to hear the real reasons you're doing this shit? The real reason you don't say no? Because you're not going to like this. I certainly didn't like this when I first heard it, but it was one of the most important things I ever had to hear. So, what's happening underneath the bullshit? Let's have a look at some of the real reasons. First one, I need to control everyone else to suit my preferences. So people pleasing and pleasing others is really about control. When we say yes to everything, what we're really saying is give it to me to control. Rather than letting other people do their own thing in a way that might affect you negatively, letting your team member run the project themselves in a way that might make you look bad, or letting your kid figure out how to tie up their own shoelaces even though you'll look bad for being late. All of these things, this is all about control. So often when we say yes when we should say no, it's about control rather than letting go. It's all about mastering the future comfort of your life. We want to eliminate all discomfort now for that dream of a permanently comfortable future that all people pleasers have. And if you think that dream's bullshit, it's because it is. So you got to ask yourself, why am I trying to achieve it when I know it's impossible? Ultimately, you're just trying to stop other people and yourself from feeling uncomfortable emotions. That's it. This isn't about helping people, it's about you feeling good. Another painful reason that we need to face. I can use helping others to force them into owing me something in return. You didn't really believe that all that helpfulness was altruistic, did you? That you're just doing it for others? Why is it you need to be known to be doing it? Why do you feel bad when someone doesn't appreciate it? How come you always need to be seen? You're not that naive, right? People pleasers don't help without making sure that it's known. They believe that good people are rewarded and you need to be noticed to be rewarded. You're doing this as a transaction, right? You say yes, but you slip them a little debit card, don't you? You just say, well, this is going to cost you, right? I'm not going to say it's going to cost you. I'm just going to feel like you owe me one. I'm going to feel like the universe owes me for being a good person. Another painful truth. I already have my loved ones locked in, so now I need to restock the shelves. So this is the idea that people pleasers tend to neglect the ones they love the most, their loved ones, their children, their partner, their family gets the worst of them, while strangers, associates, workmates get the best. And this is because once you've locked someone in, they already love you and you know they're committed and you feel safe with them. The hunger grows again. You're like, oh, I need to get more people. I need to stock the shelves with as much food as possible, as much nourishing approval and validation as possible. I've already got these ones sorted, so fuck them. I'm going to go get some new ones. Think of the guy who does unpaid overtime at work while his family's sitting there waiting for him to come home. I mean, what are his priorities? It's because people pleasers focus on a quantity of people. They want to get as many people liking them as possible, kind of like a person who's financially insecure trying to get as much money as possible in the bank, rather than becoming somebody who appreciates what they have. Another truth: this will keep people from leaving me. We see agreeableness as a kind of contract. If I do lots of stuff for you and I'm a really helpful person, not only will you constantly feel good around me, which makes you want to stay, you'll also vaguely feel like you owe me something, a debt that can never really be paid because it's not overt. We don't really know what the debt is. So you kind of just owe me forever. It's like getting in debt to the mafia, you know? You'd never pay it off. You just pay them forever. You also like to make people dependent on your help, codependency, so they can't function without you. This is especially applied to partners or subordinates at work. You do all their stuff for them so they become so fragile and useless they now can't function without you, or at least they believe so, and that way you get to keep them for yourself. Another nasty little reason: I can use a good person reputation to get rewards for my own selfish desires. See, pleasing one person gets small rewards, a one-time piece of approval. But being seen as a pleasing person, being seen as someone who's always reliable and always says yes and always does stuff, that's a reputation. And you can use this to constantly drain people of validation and approval. You do good deeds around them like, oh, you're always so helpful, oh, you're the best guy in the office, whatever. And you can just suckle at that teat all day long. And finally, the real truth: I am stuck using a childhood strategy that I originally formulated during a traumatic event. See, the heartbreaking truth about people pleasers being unable to say no is because it was unsafe to do so when they were younger. Measurably unsafe. Saying yes to everything, becoming agreeable, never saying no, sacrificing yourself. At one point in your life, that's what saved your life. You had an unstable home environment, you had hypercritical teachers, you had bullying peers. There was something that you realized was solved by just being super agreeable. And it worked back then. It got you through the day, it reduced the amount of pain and abuse that you suffered. But now you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 50s, and you're still doing it. Even though you're a fully capable adult now who could stand up for themselves and no longer requires the careful management of a dangerous adult or a group of peers, you're still doing it. And the real tragedy is you've concocted this huge story, you've piled layers and layers of bullshit on top of this original trauma. Talked yourself into believing this is who I really am, this is good behavior, this is healthy. Nah, this is just a child trying to avoid getting abused. You're not a bad person at the core. All right? This is your tainted, fucked up version of trying to be a good person. You're simply unaware that you're motivated by sick and selfish needs, that you're not trying to help others, you're not altruistic, you're not in service of others. You're desperately trying to protect yourself and pump yourself with good feelings from approval from other people. You're not coming from a healthy place. People pleasing is fucking unhealthy. And it doesn't help other people, really. If you're a confident person who does what they really think is right and they stand up for themselves and they fight for the cause that they truly believe in, they take good care of themselves first and so on, that person is a powerful service to the world. The people in that person's circle, their lives are enhanced by being in touch with that person. The people who are around a people pleaser actually end up being drained by them. So you could be a good person, absolutely. But you need to change why you're doing things, and you need to change a lot of what you're doing. So let's talk about how to start saying no safely, transitioning your behavior from unhealthy people pleasing to confident generosity. Think of these as baby steps. This is not what the most confident people do, but this is what they started doing on the path to becoming the way they are. One for them and one for you. So every time you say yes to somebody and help somebody else, you're not allowed to do that again until you've done something good for yourself in between. Sort of a 50-50 balance, right? So if I stayed and did overtime at work, then the next day I leave work early and have some time for myself to make up for it. If I help someone move house on a Saturday, the next day I ask someone to help me install my new television. Next one, stop offering to help. If you're not brave enough yet to say no directly to a request, you can at least stop adding to your plate when nobody's asked, right? So stop trying to insert your help where it hasn't been directly asked for. If you see someone struggling, keep walking. If they need you, they'll call out and ask. There's an experiment that I do with my clients who are like this, which is they're not allowed to offer support to anyone for an entire month, not even their own children. Now, if someone asks, they can decide based on that situation whether or not they'll say yes, but they just can't offer. And what the most amazing thing is every time, without any fucking exceptions, nobody cares. Nobody barely notices. The only people who actually care and notice that this person stopped offering to help are the abusive narcissists. So it's actually a great way to identify who's using you as well. Brokerage rather than fixing. Now, brokerage means you put someone in touch with the support they need rather than being the support yourself. You're the middleman, right? And this is a great way to wean yourself off people pleasing, is when somebody asks for your help or seems to need your help, rather than being the one who provides their help, be the one that provides the contact details for someone who's even better at helping. Say your friend is depressed, help them find a therapist rather than talking them through their depression. If somebody needs to move house, help them find a good deal on a house moving service rather than being the person who helps them move house. These are just examples, but the idea being is you start realizing that you aren't the best help for somebody, all right? That in almost any situation, when they need help, there's somebody better qualified and better experienced and better at it than you are. So the best way you could help this person is to help them find that other person rather than doing it yourself. Or even better, ask them, what do you think you should do about it? So coach rather than help. Get them to solve the problem themselves rather than being the solution. Next one, fill your calendar with priorities. Basically make yourself too busy to say yes to things. All right, you might already be quite busy, but it'll just be in a vague sense. You won't actually have it planned out as hours booked out of your calendar. And what you do, and this is really uncomfortable, but it's a good step forward in courage, is when someone asks for your help, you bring your calendar out and go, well, let's see if we can find some time for you. And you can let them see, hey, I'm fucking busy. Look, I've got these 3 hours booked out for playing with my kids. You really think I'm going to sacrifice that for you? You watch how uncomfortable people are to ask for help from you when they can see what you would have to sacrifice. See, people don't know what you're sacrificing, and if they did, they would be very fucking guilty about your help. If you were to tell them, look, I'm helping you move house because I'm now neglecting my kids. I promised my kids I'd take them to the park, but I've actually pushed back on that to help you. They'd say, get the fuck out of here and go back to your kids. Right? If they knew what you were really doing, if they knew that you haven't done a workout in 2 weeks because you're working overtime at work, only the most abusive people will be okay with that. So start showing people what you would actually have to sacrifice to help them. Start showing them, hey, you find a spot in my calendar. You tell me. And watch how they react when they realize, hey, you've already got a busy day. And my favorite one, just wait. When somebody asks for your help, when you get an email or a phone call or whatever, don't answer it. Wait 24 hours. It's very fucking rare that they'll need something urgently within 24 hours or somebody dies. You'll tell yourself that that's urgent, but if you look at it and go, if I don't do anything, let's say I was hospitalized and nobody knew, what would they do? The answer? They'll solve it themselves. I did this at my old job when I was working on this myself, is I set up an autoresponder on my email and said, I only respond to emails at this hour and that hour, and I'll get back to you then. And I also did a similar thing with my phone. It went straight to voicemail and said, leave a message, I'll get back to you when I'm available. 90% of the requests I used to get disappeared almost overnight. Within 2 weeks, I barely got an email, barely got a phone call, because when I made people wait, their codependency was broken and they went and solved it themselves and they never needed me again. I had tricked them into thinking they needed me because I was always available. When I wasn't available, they survived without me. And you'll realize a lot of people don't need you and they survive without you when you're not available. So Make them wait and see if they can solve it on their own. Remember, these are just baby steps that lead up to the real work, which is about becoming ruthlessly protective of your own time. It's about living by your core values rather than pleasing others. It's about mostly saying no to other people so that when you do say yes, you can go all in on it. Now, if you want to make a jump from people pleaser who can't say no to massively confident and generous person who makes the world a better place, I can help you with that. So here comes the pitch. You could do this all on your own. You can use books and courses. You can use trial and error to figure it out, and it will take you some amount of years. Right? It took me about 7 years doing this on my own. Right? It can be done, and I have full faith in you that if you're dedicated to it, you could do it. Or you can work with someone like me, have me in your corner, and it will take a few months. When you work with me directly with coaching, I help you overcome your fear of rejection. I help you see through your narratives so that you're not convinced by them. Help you get your core values in order and see what matters versus what you think matters and what you've been conditioned to believe matters. Help you remove your shame and guilt about yourself so that you feel confident saying no and prioritize your worth over somebody else's neediness. We can do all of that work together. I've done it thousands of times. It's actually pretty straightforward stuff. Yes, you will be uncomfortable and you'll have to do things that are new, and some people will react a little bit awkwardly to it, but you'll become a better person for yourself and for your loved ones. And I can help you do that. If you want to try it out, you want to see what my help is like, get in touch, dan@brojo.org. I'll send you an application form for a free trial session, and you can see for yourself without having any obligation to buy anything. Thank you so much for watching the video. I'll see you all next time.